It really is a little bit sad that we can't cover all of them. But, with that said, we are able to kick this off, and let's do this, guys. To the top right-hand side of Dr. Sanctuary, I read a Terran player from Titan X1. This is Bunny. His opponent in the top left-hand side, the pink Zerg player, give it up for Scarlett. Game 1 of this series, and it is a best of 3 throughout the day. So all the way through the day, we're going to be seeing best of 3s until the grand finals, where we have a best of 5, of course, and that's where things will be getting very tense, because that's at the point at which you have a $300 first place prize, $100 second place prize. And if you do drop out just before then, just before the finish line in 3rd and 4th place, you will still walk away with $50 at least, which is, you know, it's not nothing. It's still $50. What can you do with $50 nowadays? Still a fair amount. You can almost buy an entry pass to a DreamHack. You know, it's something. It's something. Instead of dropping on down here, and as we get this going, of course, we're looking towards a very standard game. In the early stages of this Terran versus Zerg. Big 4-player map, but because of the layout here, Scarlett will get the first scout. Zerg's pretty much always on 4-player maps, and this is kind of interesting info if you're kind of new to StarCraft, I guess, because there's not really a reason for anyone to have talked about this for a while, but Zergs will always send their first overlord to the, in the direction where it will arrive in the natural expansion soonest. So for example, Scarlett, this isn't a natural expansion, this is the natural expansion. So this is the closest natural expansion to Scarlett when she spawns top left. And so that's why she sends her first overlord over here. And for Bunny, unfortunately, he's going to be found right away because of that. Now, that said, there isn't really much to hide here for Bunny. It is a command center first, which is a little bit different, is a little bit more greedy. But at this stage, I mean, Scarlett, you can't really open pool first and be like, haha, I'm going to come across and cancel your CC, because what if Bunny wasn't there? What if he was bottom right or bottom left? Then she wouldn't know where to send the Zerglings. And in that sort of scenario, honestly, it's actually kind of crazy, because it actually turns out even better for the CC first against the pool first, because as weird as that sounds, the CC first actually finishes before the Lings arrive, so you can just finish the wall off, and you don't actually have to fight the Zerglings, whereas with a Rax, with a gas Rax into Command Center Reaper expand, the Reaper comes down, the CC's a bit late, and it's because the Reaper's out of position that you don't actually have something in position to defend initially, so it's a very interesting sort of situation and scenario where the CC first is almost safer against those aggressive pool first openings. It is a little bit weird. It's just it's just because you kind of don't go into a Reaper which then runs across the map. It's definitely intriguing. Well, Scarlett, of course, seeing this in the top right, the big thing about that is it means she can throw her hatchery down on the 3rd base, and she can choose the correct 3rd base. She does not want to be expanding in towards Bunny. Imagine how horrible this position would be. Bunny pushes across the map this direction. He's got a lot of ledges to work with. He can drop some tanks here and push up here. He can knock down the cooling tower to wall this off and to stop Lings getting to the tanks. There's so much she could do to abuse this base. But of course, in this current situation, Scarlett knows that Bunny is in the top right-hand side, and so she's able to get her 3rd hatchery away from the Terran player, and that's absolutely brilliant. And that has basically negated the big negatives of this map, which is the 4-player map is generally, the 4-player map is generally not enjoyed by players because of the RNG of finding your opponent, of sometimes having to guess what's going on, having to guess where you should expand to. But of course, again, in this game, Scarlett found her opponent right away, and so that RNG factor is eliminated. And well, Scarlett, seeing that it is close by ground in horizontal spawns, is also going to use that to her advantage. A Rotoron's come up here as I've been blabbering on, and with that Rotoron coming through, this is obviously looking to be very all-in. 9-10 roaches on the way out, and at the moment Bunny comes across, he sees some creep, but then he pulls back, and that's a little bit of an annoyance, because the last thing he wants right here is to, not really get information. A Liberator on the way from Bunny as well. It's not really the correct sort of setup here. The fact it's got a tech lab would be amazing if this was a Banshee, of course, because a Banshee will start to shut down these roaches. Look at these Hellions. They're in completely the wrong position as Scarlett is coming through the top side of the map. This is going to be really, really painful very shortly here for Bunny, as, he has absolutely nothing to deal with this. Lingzok on the way out to help, and as Bunny runs into the 3rd base and sees 0 drones, I think that's the point at which Bunny goes home and realizes, oh my god, what the hell is about to happen? Liberator sieges up, and it will be able to get some damage done. In fairness, over time, the Ravager will have to be a little bit careful here. We'll get the first corrosive bar to the Liberator. It does connect. It's a good start. A couple of Hellions going down here. We're going to see potentially a break on the ramp. Scarlett actually just going to sit on the low ground. We've seen another Ravager. using those corrosive bars to push that Liberator away every now and then, and there's going to be another corrosive bar right now. Liberator can be repaired though, that Ravager's stuck. A little bit kind of caught up on the bottom of the ramp. The other Ravager's kind of just blocking it in there. It's a bit of a weird moment. As you are going to see, Hellions being chased away by just a few Zerglings. So everything on the low ground going down, and now Scarlett will begin to drone as well. And push back the natural from mining. I think this is definitely enough damage here right away, especially because of an immediate counterattack. What are you going to do? It's pure Hellion production at the moment, and with only Hellions, Roaches and Ravagers are going to be completely fine. Banshee is now seen, so the Banshee might be able to chase and get a Ravager kill or so, and Bunny is going to be able to retake the natural. But again, Scarlett, she's able to drone in the recent moments, she's able to get that economy going, and she still has enough of an army to be able to realistically deal with a counterattack, so she doesn't have to focus on unit production now. She can just fully say, okay, let's make drones, let's get this economy rolling, and Scarlett does back away. Scarlett backing on the way over to the left-hand side, as Bunny will continue to set himself up. He can finally get that Liberator across the map for harassment purposes. There's a Viking coming up too to start cleaning out a couple of Overlords here and there as well. Scarlett staying active on her map of the Zerglings. And as this happens, guys, I'm just going to quickly pop up in the picture-in-picture Alive versus Rogue. Alive has a pretty terrifying push coming towards Rogue, and it looks like a big fight's breaking out right there as Chitinous Plating is just finished up. So 11 minutes into that game, and well, Alive is actually not quite able to press the issue just yet, and Rogue has some counterattacks going on, so that continues. Alive vs Rogue also happening in the first round of action here today in the Kung Fu Cup number 9, as I took the picture-in-picture away just before the fight happens. There you go, I'll put it on for this fight to continue, and as you can see, Rogue is able to easily break through Alive's defensive or aggressively defensive position. It's a weird one because he's set up with all those tanks, but Rogue does break through, and the fight goes his way for the moment. Well, in the meantime, back to this Bunny versus Scarlett matchup where we do see the Liberator coming through the top side. Was able to pick up a couple extra kills across the map. A few Hellions are moving around as well, and just cleaning up some creep tumors here and there. +1 missile upgrades and carapace upgrades coming through currently from Scarlett, and that's something which was definitely delayed by her choice to be aggressive early, but again, it's mech, and so the upgrades to the mech player aren't exactly super quick either. If this was a bio defense, you know, if Bunny defending this playing bio, I think this is a much bigger issue, because generally the bio upgrades are a lot faster, and so if you have 1-1 already finishing up as a Terran player with bio, boom, you stem in, you kind of kill a bunch of roaches. You trade so well against those roaches with the upgrade lead. As mech, it's a little bit of a different scenario, so Scarlett's going to kind of benefit from that. And as she's on 70 drones, she drops the infestation pit and she'll head towards that hive tech, that all-important hive tech, which of course brings you so many opportunities, so many options, and so many just answers in general as to what you can actually do. I mean, you know, Vipers obviously are a massive utility in terms of being able to deal with the Zerg army, the Terran army. You can go in towards a Greater Spire if you'd like to as well, and obviously that opens up a really, really frustrating set of units to deal with. Those Broodlords, not easily dealt with by mech. So it definitely can give you some options to play with here. Or you can just use the Infestation Pit for the Swarm Hosts. It's interesting, because I really feel as though, I guess it's a good map for Swarm Hosts. You know, there's a lot of different places you can run around. It's relatively large. So if we get some good creep out here, then you can definitely slow down the Terran from counter-attacking across and, attacking him before the Swarm Hosts are back on cooldown. So, I kind of like it. If you bring the Swarm Hosts through the top side, you can locust in towards this natural expansion. If you get them around the south, you can, a few different locations to get in towards the third base. There's definitely possibilities here to make these Swarm Hosts useful. So, Scarlett opted for the Swarm Hosts, and I guess maybe that's kind of obvious, the fact that the Infestation Pit came down without any sort of Hydra's Den or anything, because without the Hydra Den, was it really just going to be Roach Ravager into the Vipers? It doesn't really quite add up, does it? But the Swarm Hosts are that tech choice, which can definitely allow things to go a little bit better. So 5 Swarm Hosts to the top side already, as Lings and Roaches will gather up in the center of the map, taking that Watchtower. Banshee here is on 5 hit points, very, very low. There's a couple of Zerglings taking some shots as they go. And there's a Locust popping on up, and they're going to drop down mostly on these Hellions though. And, well, I mean, honestly, not a bad thing to kill the Hellions. I mean, it's not like the greatest use of Locusts, I would say, but, there's more valuable targets. But what you've got to think of is, if those Locusts kill the Hellions now, they won't have to deal with the Hellions a little bit later on, when the Hellions could be a big answer to the Locust, or they're not going to have to deal with as many. So it's still something. It's not like the Locust just dove on one Hellion and then had to run forwards and they just died. They did get some kills here, and that is massively important, as you are going to see this Banshee is going to force these Swarm Hosts back. That one super low HP Banshee Roach is trying to make a move forwards, but Scarlett's not really going to find the opportunity. These Locust just finding their way towards the natural, and actually that's really nice. Nothing in position, and those Locusts will get work done. A couple of depots going down, and obviously that's, you know, it's just genuine damage as we see Locusts off cooldown pushing forwards here. Initial Hellbats helping to push that away. Maybe actually Bunny can keep on pushing right now because those Locusts went down super quickly. Scar's going to see the attempt to keep on pressing forwards here. Corrosive Bile will slow things down just a little bit. Bunny had to pull back there momentarily. Scar has a 5th base up in this forward location, but that 5th base up, she also has the 4th bottom left, and that is definitely very safe. You know, this base is not going anywhere. You are going to see Roaches and Raptors come forwards again. Corrosive Biles on a lot of the siege tanks as they siege. The back she goes down too. A couple of Swarm Hosts getting caught in siege tank fire though, and that is obviously expensive as those Locusts coming off cooldown once again. Popping up into the skies, and Scarlett as she moves forwards here, well, wants to try and avoid the Hellbat side of this army, which is on the top, and she's going to engage in with the Roaches and Ravagers to try and make the most out of those Locusts. But still, the tanks are really dealing with this well. Hellion count is being reinforced right now too as Bunny. Not sure how much further he can go though, but he is expanding all the way down the right-hand side of the map, so he's taking all of these bases at the moment. And we are going to be seeing the, well, I guess more Lings or so going to be kind of, you know, should be running down there to deny this. And we do see Roaches on their way over, but Hellions on the Watchtower are going to deny that Roach run by, and so Scarlett will be limited in terms of what she'll be able to get done with this because, you know, Bunny knows about it. And again, it only takes 1 or 2 Roaches in each of these bases to stop them building, but does Scarlett know those bases are building? Well, right now, no. She's got no clue. She might assume it. An assumption is all it would be, as those army is actually out of position a little bit, though. I mean, it was all the way out in towards the center, and now these Roaches are able to pop up in towards the natural, even. So almost are waiting to pop their Locusts off, and I guess they're going to come in right now. Which way are they going to go? They are going to go towards the army rather than up the ramp, which I thought was perhaps a possibility there. The Locusts dropping down, the friendly fire of siege tanks is kind of painful. Siege tank count taking some hits, and Scarlett scrappy with the Swarm Hosts, still making it work out. Has a Viper or 2 coming into play now as well, so something additional to help out to deal with this mech play. Again, the fact that Bunny has, what, a 4th base now, a 5th base coming up with gases, his economy is going to be endless if Scarlett doesn't do something about all of this. And a couple of refineries continue to come on up as we do see more SCVs coming down in towards the 4th base. There's again more Roaches and Ravagers pushing out towards the center, some more Swarm Hosts up to the top side as well. Now a couple of Hellions do run by, we're going to see 1 drone picked off, a 2nd drone picked off. The Roaches continue to come up to the top, pushing those Hellions away. Another Ravager will morph in, Viper's full of energy now. And again more Roaches as they come down towards the bottom right hand side. They can definitely look to see what else they can do. Cyclones and tanks gathered up here, a lot of Vikings up in the sky. A scan will come down. That is goodbye at least to a couple of Creep Tumors. Locusts heading up towards the top side as well. We're just going to see 1 Ravager here, ready to pick this Hellion off. So Hellion will go down. We'll just make their way in towards the 3rd base. 1 single siege tank is going to clean this up, unfortunately. Scarlett just gotten onto that siege tank quickly enough, that would have been great. Mech Army is on the top left, as you see this base being denied mining as well. Scarlett, I mean, this is where you have to be very careful because the Locust again on cooldown for another 15 seconds or so. And we just wait to see how that continues here as we do see the mech still pushing forwards. A lot of Cyclones right now as we have got the Viper going down. Locust off cooldown. Here's the opportunity. Actually dropped a parasitic bomb onto the Viking. Let's see how this goes. The Roaches and Ravagers come down the ramp. It's a lot of Cyclones. Again, as the Locusts drop, they get a lot of initial damage done, but the Cyclones really shred them pretty quickly. So that does hurt a little bit. As we do see this mech army is now going to keep on pushing upwards, and those Swarm Hosts are running away, trying to just keep themselves alive here. Cyclone's still taking damage. Ravagers and Roaches, oh my god, he's going to block off. Oh, that's actually deadly. He blocks the cooling tower down, and with that going down, it blocks the Swarm Host, and they kind of ran into it there, which meant the tanks got even more damage done. More Swarm Hosts fell. And while Scarlett is denying this base of mining, she's not denying this base of mining, she's not denying this base of mining. Scarlett very much so knows that she's not going to clean up that army either. GG, Bunny will take the first game of the game. First game of the day. It is 1-0. To the bottom left hand side, red Terran player, again, up 1-0, is of course then Bunny. And to the top right, pink Zerg, give it up for Scarlett. Hello, Dark is the Void coming in for the 14 months on Twitch Prime, saying Mon Wardy, best Wardy. How's it going? Dark is the Void. Feels as though, usually you like to show up kind of towards the end of our tournaments, but today you're here bright and early. It's our second map of the day, our very first series. So what's up? How's it going? Great to have you with me. And thank you so much for the 14-month resub. Let's see some love in the chat, guys. So Dark's the Void. So, game number 2 in this $500 Kung Fu Cup weekly tournament here every single Thursday. We were here last Thursday. We'll be here next Thursday. Unfortunately, not the Thursday after because I'll be at Home Story Cup. As we do see, Overlord's initially moving out onto the map, hatch opening. Remember, Scarlett opened that last game with a bit of roach-ling aggression. We'll see what she tries to open with this time around. If she's going to be aggressive again, you gotta remember she did scout a CC first opening, and that does, potentially delay your tech because you have later gas, etc. So it was definitely a decent choice. Honestly, I think the opening went okay. I just think it was the Swarm host that didn't really find enough value to. The Swarm host really didn't find enough value at all, right? I mean, you think about what the Swarm host got. They killed a few Hellions initially, then a couple of Swarm hosts were lost, then they killed off maybe a tank. It just wasn't enough, and it felt like Bunny was always very well prepared for these Swarm hosts, time and time again. So, what does Bunny change? Well, I don't really know what Bunny changes, actually. I think Bunny just sort of... what does Bunny change? I don't think he has to change anything. What does Scarlett change? I think Scarlett has to think about those Swarm hosts again, and if she does go for them once more, how does she use them differently? How does she find better fights with them? I would have loved at points to see the Swarm hosts maybe just lift up and go towards the natural expansion when there was nothing in there. I feel like that could have been a lot of pressure, a lot of SCV damage done. Then the argument is, well, you're not actually doing any damage to the army, and if you don't do any damage to the army, that could kind of suck for you, but I still think it could go kind of okay as we see this Reaper arriving. If you see the first drone going to get pooped by the grenade, and the Fuelings coming forward, is that going to be turned away by the Reaper as well? Meanwhile, by the way, I don't know what just happened, but Rogue apparently just took game number 2 against Alive, so Rogue has won that series. I think it was a 2-Rax or something from Alive. Actually, wasn't watching it all too closely at all, for once, so not 100% sure what happened, but it does look as though Alive Rogue very comfortably moves on through to the next round of today's Kung Fu Cup. So Rogue moves on through, and he will be playing against... Who does Rogue play against, actually, now in the next round? Rogue plays against... I don't know, because I can't find his name on the bracket. Ay, ay, ay. And now when I do find it, something's blocked now. Oh my god. Oh, he plays Maxell. Okay, that's not too exciting. So that's against Trap starting up, though. There's definitely some cool matches starting up. We'll definitely get into something here, I'm sure, in the near future. Looks like Crank is out of game too, so maybe we'll just follow Crank into whatever he decides to cast next, as we do have this game to focus up on. So, the feeling is moving down towards the bottom left-hand side. Hellion or two able to poke away at a couple of Zerglings. Command Center and a Supply Depot are going to be dropping as well, so third base already on the way up here, and really nothing too crazy for Bunny. A very standard free Command Center play where he just gets the Viking up to shoot down some Overlords, some bits and pieces like that. As you are going to see, this barracks just going to move over to a tech lab. Sorry, I had to tap out to time someone out. Step back on the way up here from Bunny, so we are going to see a difference in play here. We're just going to be going into the bio play from the very get-go. Factory will build another reactor, that'll be for this barracks, I'm sure. And now Scarlett gets to show us just what she wants to do against a bio play. Now that she isn't playing against a mech, what will she do this time? Can she find herself a map here in this best of 3? I mean, it's now or never, right? Because you lose this and you're out. Your Kung Fu Cup run today will be over. Hellion's still just moving around. Reaper does pick off a creep tumor here as well. Grenade goes down. We're just going to see a little bit of a boop on some of those drones, and well, Lings do get a kill on the Reapers. We do see Vikings going to try and kill off that Overlord, but Queen's just going to get the kill, and that's a little bit messy from Bunny to lose the Viking, especially when Bunny's controlling the Hellions here. He sees the Vikings under fire, he knows it's not going to survive, and he didn't try and pull it back or anything, so interesting. One more upgrade's pretty similarly timed from the players. I mean, it's about a 20-second difference, which is pretty okay. That means that up until 2-2, you know, everything should be evened out. Once 3-3 comes into play, Scarlett might be a bit behind depending on how fast her hive is. Generally, the Zerg does just have that hive. And then 3-3 just a little bit slower than the Terran player. Just because you do have to invest into hive, and sometimes it's difficult to get up into hive when you've been playing Lingbait and Hydra especially. You know, you don't already have an infestation pit down or whatever. It does just take that a little while to build up, and even when you hit hive, it's very difficult to afford the next set of upgrades, because a lot of the time you're going to focus immediately on, you know, rather than upgrades you go in towards, for example, you know, Ultra Cavern, Adrenal Glands, you know, other upgrades and structures which are going to be very useful and vital on hive tech. So that said, we do see the armory coming in from Bunny, so he's getting ready for his own 2-2, so those upgrades are continuing. I think this tank's a little bit stuck. Might have to see this factory lifting up and moving away. I think Bunny's realizing that now. He's actually going to siege up to kill that tech lab. Not sure if you really need to siege up to do that. Would it be better just to stay unsieged, but you can see the tech lab going down. That should allow the siege tank to move across. A drop into the main. It's just 8 Marines, and it will take just a few links to clean this up. A couple of Hydras coming out as well. Scarlett deflects this very nicely so far. Level 10 drones currently just on the way up at the moment. What happened in the first game? Asks just a guy with a in the chat. First game was a mech play from Bunny. After Scarlett opened Roach Ling, she did quite good because it was a CC first. Honestly, she pushed the natural CC back. She didn't really do a lot of damage, I would say, but she delayed mining, and honestly, I think she was in a fine position. She then chose to go Swarm Hose with Roach Ravager, and the Swarm Hose just didn't really do enough throughout the course of the game, and after some back and forth fights, in the end, Bunny was able to just come across the map and break through while the Swarm Hose was still on cooldown. And honestly, Bunny played pretty well in those scenarios. He created some good situations for himself. Situations like that one, where 2 queens just go down for free. Nice pickoffs here by Bunny, as those Marines load back up, and Little Bay and Hydra gonna come back along the right-hand side. On the bottom of the map, a couple of medevacs just kind of sat down there, waiting to see what will happen next. Hive about to finish up from Scarlett in the main base. And again, 2-2 upgrades on the way from both players. Still just that 20-ish second gap between the two of them. It's not really too much. This Bunny just consistently fighting against so much of the creep spread over here. Love to see that, just picking off so much of it. And obviously that just really delays what Scarlett can do in terms of keeping a presence on the map here. The less creep there is, the further forward Bunny can push, the further he can push, the more he's generally going to get done with his push. You know, if you're pushed back all the way over here by creep, you have to siege up on your own side of the map. You know, Scarlett has an eternity to counterattack, you know, deal with that pressure, whatever. If Bunny comes across here and sieges up here, pushes in towards this base, suddenly Scarlett's a lot more pressed to kind of deal with it, to think about what she wants to do. She doesn't have time, you know, as much time to set up counterattacks, etc. She becomes a little bit stuck in terms of trying to find an answer. Bunny just building up this massive army, and as 2-2's about to kick in, it's generally the big timing for a Terran player to start moving across the map. So a big chunk of bio, a lot of tanks supported by a 4th base behind it. It's going to be a good push from Bunny. As we do see, Scarlett at least is on hive tech and getting the Vipers out. It's going to be one big answer to those siege tanks, of course. So look towards the siege tanks to see just what will happen here. Some early game Hellions have morphed into Hellbats as well. Impressive that they're still around. And obviously just means that Bunny can still bring them into the fight right now. You can see the efficiency of this game has been great. 1 Medevac, Hellion, Viking, Reaper lost. Yeah, there's quite a few queens and of course a lot of creep that's been picked off throughout the course of this as well. And that's what's so impressive, that Bunny has lost so little after we saw, you know, him staying on the map for the entirety of this game so far. Tanks sieging up in a forward position, as we will see a couple of creep tumors. Going down again, actually staying us down to the south because there's a massive amount of Ling Bane on the way over here. All this Ling Bane is going to be coming through as well. Scarlett looking for the counter attack. I mean, it was a very quick response, honestly, from our Terran player. The biggest thing for Scarlett is, even if she doesn't, oh my god, she gets all the SCVs. The Balin connects there in the end, and she does clean out an entire mineral line, basically. Wow. And the biggest thing of this, of course, she forces this entire army home, and oh dear, these siege tanks are in trouble now because some abducts. You can see that the Vipers are actually maybe trying to get in a better position to make this work. To abduct them kind of actually into the army instead of just into a random spot. That was really nice. Scarlett taking advantage of the fact that units were left behind on the top side too, and that's what I was trying to say before it actually happened. The fact that, you know, it forced the Terran player back, it gave Scarlett a lot of time, and boom, that instant counterattack it worked out. And again, it's not like Bunny was like, aha, all your units are out of position, let's stim in, because there was creep here. Creep blocking Bunny from realistically comfortably pushing forward. So Scarlett doing great here in this second game. Now she's playing against some bio rather than the mech. Let's see if she can keep it up. Both players are still maxed out, but Scarlett's the one that's already started to build up a bank. And her upgrades are actually taking the lead now. A Terran player for getting the final set of upgrades. And of course, that's a little bit of a shame, a little bit of a shocker, I suppose. Doesn't happen a lot, as we do see Bane Hydra Viper heading on over to the left-hand side. A couple of siege tanks going to get abducted in once again. Bane's trying to make their way forwards. It's a little bit messy there. Just so much bio that Scarlett has to try and be able to fight through. She's currently building a few corruptors as well, which doesn't immediately help against the bio. The biggest thing is, though, those bio units are now supported by less and less siege tanks, and with that, it means that you can just sort of swarm into this. Boarding war zones on the way up. It kind of feels like Scarlett might have to get some Banelings going, but she doesn't really have the time. She only has 18 Banelings right now. You can see we have to zoom all the way out to see the spread of the Terran army at the moment, as Bunny has found himself all the way towards the upper right side. What do you do here? I guess you look to Blinding Cloud as much of the bio as possible, really slow things down. But Blinding Cloud, that one single siege tank here. Bane's starting to move their way in towards these Marines. Hydra's coming in from the back to help out as well. Extra Vipers are just getting picked off, not really doing enough. Hydra's on their own now, in trouble, and again, it feels like Scarlett needed to spend some money on Banelings more than anything else. She's going to leave the game because as units come out for her, she still has good supply.